Laughter for All podcast. I am Comedian Nazareth, and thank you for joining us again for another exciting, entertaining, and educating, if that's a good word, podcast. It's so good to be back with you. We are show number 120, and it's interesting that we are jumping from 3,200 downloads to 5,800. We're number 68 on the top comedy podcast. And I don't know how many, there's 18,000 or something. I truly believe it is consistency and also the type of guests that I bring on the show that really helpful. So anyway, I just got back in town last night. I had, a small little tour, 2 dates in Cambria, California, which I encourage everyone to go visit if you're in love or even you like the beach. That would be a great place to go for a couple days, then get out. There's nothing else to do. And then I was at the Lancaster Performing Arts Center, did about an hour and 10 minutes to a mainstream audience, and nobody got offended. Nobody, everybody laughed. So that was very comforting to me being in that LA County, which you still have to keep your mask on. And also, I did a show in Hemet, California, on Friday. Really full house. So praise God, people are coming out again, and people are needing to laugh, and they're laughing. So it's great. Next weekend, I'm doing what is called like a donors gala for Olive Christ and Palm Springs at the Hyatt. Olive Christ, really a wonderful, wonderful ministry. So I'm going to be with them. Anyway, tonight's guest is different because I consider this man family. He's been to my house, he's met my family, and every time I'm in DC, the only reason I go to DC is because he invites me to speak. He is the top at what he does. He always impressed me. Whenever I'm around this man, I really feel I need to keep my game up. I need to be creative, more creative than normal. I need to be up. He's a morning show host and director of promotion at WGTS 91.9, which won this year's the top number one religious Christian radio. So, and I truly believe it's because of this man. So let me welcome my friend. This is how he put himself on Twitter. His wife's Crystal. He said his daughters are Adeline and Maya. So he said, I'm Crystal's guy. Princesses Adeline and Maya's dad, morning show host, promotion director at WGTS 91.9 in Washington, D.C. And guess what? Hillary Clinton and all the politicians do listen to him, even though they don't admit it. Please welcome my good friend, Jerry. How are you, Jerry Woods?
I'm doing well. That was very kind. I don't recognize anything you said, except that I am Crystal's guy and the dad to Princess Maya and Adeline. Thank you. The first time I brought my kids over your house, actually I only had one, and my baby was about 18 months old, and Nazareth gave her a bowl of ice cream as big as her head, like this, and that's what she remembers you for. He's the ice cream man.
I love it. I love it. And your mom is a nurse at Loma Linda.
She worked in a central service technician at Loma University Medical Center, yes. And then back in December, she's 77. She was climbing a tree, fell out of the tree, and broke her back. So I had to go take care of her in Southern Cal. But she's doing well now.
Ouch, ouch. It's funny. I did an event for them last month, and they just invited me back in
Nice.
April to do something. So it's nice to serve Loma Linda. Now, what is it like to raise two daughters? Didn't you want a boy? Did you want a boy?
Well, I am Jerry Woods the third, so I was really hoping that there would be a fourth for sure. But my daughter says we can get a dog and we can name him Jerry the fourth. The one thing about having three girls in the house is you're always outnumbered. Your opinion is just it's just that. It's just an opinion. They're going to do what they want to do at the end of the day. And so it has taken some navigating as they've become young women. They're 15 and 12. And I have to walk carefully and make sure that I treat them all really, really well. And I want to treat them well. I have dated my daughters since they were like 2, because when they do date someday, I want to make sure the standard is very, very high. But I love it. I love being around girls. My wife's birthday was just yesterday. I cooked for her. I cleaned for her and took care of her. So it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's amazing. What is it about you, Jerry, that you always like to do things not perfect, not just perfectly, but it's always good. You always do a great job at what you do. What drives you to do that? Did it have to do with your parents, with you? What is that? Where did you get that?
Part of it is my parents are very traditional. My mom is Filipino, so she worked hard for everything she got here in the United States. My grandpa, not even my great grandpa, my grandpa was a slave born in Tazewell County, Virginia in 1845. Had
Mm.
my dad in his late 60s in 1906. Then my dad had me in his late 60s. Okay, my dad was 67 when he had me. He was 71 when he had my younger sister. So again, my grandpa was a slave freed by Abraham Lincoln with the Emancipation Proclamation. My dad
Wow.
grew up in the Civil Rights era. And so he taught me, Jerry, in this country, you're going to have to present yourself really, really well as a black man, just growing up in this country. And so always be above reproach because you're a black man and because you're a Christian who you serve. That's Jesus Christ. So I want to give the best that I can at everything I do. I want to love the best I can at everything I do because that's who I am as a believer. And that's really who my mom and dad taught me to be.
Wow. That's amazing. I did not know that. I did not know that. Now Virginia, did they have slavery in Virginia? Wasn't it in the South only?
Yeah, Virginia was the capital of the Confederacy, actually. That's where, Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederacy. Robert E. Lee was there. And so really across the river from Washington, D.C., it was slave territory. At one time, Washington, D.C. was actually slave territory as well. So it's a very unique story. That's where my family is from. And I live only about 30 minutes from Virginia now. And so to see how things change, sometimes we've had a lot of racial tension in this country in the last year. But I look to the progress. It was not that many years ago in many of our lifetimes, there was a much bigger struggle in this country. So I love how we come together. My wife is white, I'm black and Filipino. And so my kids are a nice mixture of all of that. And they can't really be prejudiced because it's all in them. They're related to everyone. My co-host said to me the other day, she said, Jerry, when you say my cousin so-and-so is coming to visit, I never know what they're going to look like. Are they Asian? Do they look like they're Middle Eastern? Do they look like they're white? Do they look like they're black? I just never know. And I hope that Nazareth, our generation of kids are the generation that get rid of racism just because they're friends with everybody. And that just ends it there. Not because they did anything specific, just that they loved everybody.
That's great, and that's my prayer, and that's my kids. I think we have a generation of kids that are, because they didn't have to work hard like we did. They look at justice around the world, and they want justice, they want equality, they want all that to happen. So I
Right.
truly believe a lot of them, especially like my daughter goes to UCLA, and she's always they hate injustice. They like this is not fair. This is people should be treated the same, and so I love that about him, but let me what do you how do you deal when you notice a Christian, a brother or a sister in the Lord, that being racist? I mean, I experienced it for, and not much, very little, but how do you deal with that?
Well, I think we need to differentiate between prejudiced and bigoted. And prejudice may just be I grew up and I didn't know anybody of another race. Everybody looked like me. Bigoted is like I've made a conscious choice that I'm not going to like that group of people. Prejudice
Oh,
is more easily overcome because it's just you expose them. Because if I'm friends, if I don't like Middle Easterners, but I become friends with Nazareth, I'm like, well, he's not anything like I thought that stereotype was. He's not blowing anything up. He's a really nice guy. He's funny. I like him. I try to love people, so hopefully that breaks through. If someone's bigoted, it's a lot harder. My last job before I came here to Washington, D.C. was for the Billy Graham Association in North Carolina. And I ran into some pretty crazy things there. There were people that did not believe. I was on the radio one afternoon, for instance, and I was talking about a speech. And a lady said, "You prejudice, you hate black people." And I started laughing and she got mad. She's like, "What?" I said, "Well, actually, ma'am, I'm black." She didn't believe me. She said, "Well, you don't sound black on the radio." So that's a little bit harder. But my goal for anybody is at the end of the day, we're all family, Nazareth, right? We're all children of God. So
yes,
hopefully if I
yes.
love people well, I can break your stereotype. I believe if you get to know me, we can get to be friends. Maybe we eat something together. That's going to break down walls. And if it doesn't immediately, then maybe I have to, not every person I can win over, right? The Bible says not to cast your pearls before swine. If there's some people who are not accepting of me that I can't change, I'm not going to go out of my way to antagonize them. But at the point they want to
Mm.
sit down and have an honest conversation, I'm more than willing to do that.
Amen. You have to get up. Let me tell the people your schedule. You have to wake up at what time to be at the station?
I get up about 3:30 most mornings. Yeah.
And when do you go to bed?
I should go to bed between like 8 and 9. A lot of times it's
Which is
9:30 or 10.
now.
I'm talking to you now. I'm on the East Coast, so it is 9:39 here.
I am keeping you up, and I'm so sorry, but I appreciate that. No, no, 3:30 in the morning. It's cold. It's freezing in DC. You get to the station probably 4:30. How can you be creative every single day? What is it? What's your magic pill?
Well, first of all, I love the people I work with. I have an amazing job where I get paid to talk, to laugh, and make people smile, to encourage them. Right in Washington D.C., people say, "How does that work?" Well, I say in this city more than any other city in the world, people need to laugh. They need people like you, Nazareth. So we don't talk about politics. We talk about the good things that are happening in the world. We talk about encouragement. During the pandemic, when I think there were like 8 people listening, we had this thing at like 5 in the morning called the Essential Worker Check-in. Like, if you're up and listening now, tell us what you do and why you're there. So we're encouraging doctors and nurses and firefighters and police officers. So it's what I get to do. I mean, yeah, sometimes it's still hard to get up, but once I get in that studio and I'm surrounded by people that are smiling, that are laughing, that want to do the same thing that I do, that's what gets me up in the morning. I don't do it for me. I do it for the people that I have the privilege of talking to, the people who are privileged enough that will turn on the radio and listen. I don't know why, but they choose to listen. That's exciting, and I take that very seriously. This is my 31st year in radio and broadcasting entertainment. And the fact that people still want to listen, I came up as a punk kid. I started when I was 18, is pretty amazing to me. So I don't take that privilege for granted. It's like I heard LeBron James say, right? I'm a big Lakers fan.
Oh, you're from California.
Yeah. He wants to play every night because he said there's some young kid there. There's some 8-year-old. This is going to be the one game he gets to go to in his lifetime, right? And so I want to give it my all because this is the only game he sees. I want him to see me at my best. That's how I feel when I get to go in the morning. Today, I want to give it my all because maybe this is a chance someone needs to be encouraged. Maybe someone is really, really sad this morning. Maybe someone is going through loss. Maybe someone needs to know that they're loved. And if I can be a conduit for God's love, for Jesus' love to them, hey, you're loved, you're accepted, he cares about you just where you are right now, then I don't want to miss that opportunity, Nazareth.
That's amazing. Now, do you used to be and I know you were in Washington State, then you went to Idaho, and that's where we met, and then you spent 12 years, I think, in Idaho, and then you went to North Carolina and then DC.
Yeah.
Now, do you have to act different, not speak different, but I mean, do you have different topics because you're in DC? There's things you don't want to talk about because you're in DC, and there's politician watching, listening to you?
We do steer clear of politics in DC. That is what is different here. Not that I talk a lot of politics in Christian radio anyhow. I don't think there's a lot of room for that because that divides people. You'll never hear me go on there and go, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm a whatever. No. You know what I said before the election? I said, what? Jesus is not a Republican. Jesus is not a Democrat. Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. My first allegiance is here, not anywhere around here, not blue or red or anything like that. But as far as topics go, pretty much nothing is off limits. We've had conversations about talking to your kids about sex. We just talk above their heads. It's clean. I promise it'll be clean, but we can talk about anything. We were talking today. I had a crisis counselor on, and we're talking about how do you talk to your kids about war with what's going on in Ukraine, right? And he's like, you've got to be honest. You want to control the narrative. You want to say, hey, it's going to be okay. We're going to pray for those folks. You don't want them getting their information from their friends or from the news. You want to control that narrative with your kids. They want to hear from you first. And I think that's powerful. So yeah, we can talk about just about anything. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, because we are a family station. And so I want to talk about things that are going to appeal to families, but I've got singles of the audience. I've got people from all walks of life. It's Washington, D.C., so much like Southern California. There are literally people here from every country in the world that listen to the show.
I mean, it's the number one show. And I remember when I was at the GMA, you received an award for the best radio station personality. And what is it? I mean, how do you stay creative? How do you stay? I know you like the people that you work around, so you're upbeat and happy, and you love people. Everybody who meets you knows that. But how do you stay creative? That's what I want to know.
Well, there's a lot of planning. A lot of people think that radio is spontaneous or it's scripted. It's not scripted, but it's also not totally spontaneous either. So when I go into, I've got a book right here. I'll show you. This is a book of everything that we're working on all the shows. I don't know if you can see that. You probably can't see that well, but this is a run sheet that talks about every break in the show and what we're going to talk about in that break and whether we're going to take a call and what we're going to do. So for like the rest of this week, the shows are already planned. Like Mercy Me's my guest tomorrow. We're going to talk about certain things. We're going to talk about, can you give a friend a pet? Is that a good gift? Because someone gave me a pet out of the blue. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
But that's fun. So we're always looking, what are people talking about? I read a lot. I read 3 or 4 newspapers a day or portions of newspapers online. I read a lot of different articles. I read the Good News Network is a great place. Some Good News. I read a lot of positive sites. I'm involved in my community. I see what's going on. I'm just an observer of life, probably much like you. I'm guessing a lot of your comedy is based on things that you have seen. So if I'm at the mall, that's great material. If I get cut off, that's great material. I had COVID last week. I was in isolation. I almost died of boredom. That's good material. You know, what is happening around me, what fires things off and what makes comedy work, I'm sure for you, Nazareth, is when I can take a story and tell a story and fire something off in you and you go, oh yeah, me too. And so that's the creativity for me. What is the story that I can tell that's going to resonate with you? And again, that takes a lot of reading and that takes a lot of living life. I want to be out there. That's why COVID was hard. When I was isolated, it's much harder to be creative when you're by yourself. I surround myself with a lot of people. I read a ton and I try to put myself in different situations, eat at a different restaurant, drive a different way home, meet a new person. Meet a person, and I think this is one of the things, the struggles we have in this country is a lot of us only need know people that look like us and talk like us. If you want to get to know people and get more creative, meet someone who eats differently than like you, who has a different background, who has a different family, who even has a different belief system, and get to know them, and it will expand your mind. I believe the divide in this country isn't so much Republicans and Democrats, it's people who have traveled and people who haven't. Did you know, Nazareth, that like 1 out of 4 people in this country has never left the county they were born in? 1 out of 4.
I didn't know
you
that.
don't have perspective. The perspective is much more different and you can be much more creative. The people that are around me are the people that feed into me. I get so much show prep just from watching my family, but from spending time with my friends, from people like you. It's been 20 years ago now. You were opening for a show in Boise. You said, Jerry, come open for me. I'm like, I've never done comedy. He's like, so you're on the radio every day. Come try it. It's
and you did
trusting
good.
yourself to try new things. And you may not be good at it the first time, but you have a new experience. When the Olympics happened, I took my entire show and we went curling. And I was actually really good at curling. I was shocked because I'd never tried curling. But again, it was a great experience. We could talk about this. I'm like, this is a lot harder than it looks, but it's a lot of fun. So it's just trying a lot of new things, putting yourself in new situations, meeting new people. The creativity will flow out of you.
That's a great advice. Speaking of curling, I think my janitor is the best curler. He's very good with the ball. And I was telling people, I said the guy who won the discus throw, that was my Amazon delivery guy. He's really good. But back to your story tomorrow about giving a friend a pet. About 15 years ago, a friend of Maha gave her a turtle, the sea turtle that we have. And those are dirty animals. They're disgusting, and you have to clean up the thing. And every time we have to clean the tank, I can see Maha under her lip, like, I can't believe she gave me this gift. I can't believe. Finally, 3 days ago, Tally's teacher said she has a pond, and we gave Tubby, our turtle, finally after 15 years.
15 years.
15 years we kept them and we kept complaining about this. I mean, that's procrastination. That's what it is. It's funny. I was reading. You said your New Year's resolution for 2022. You said this year I want to be more like Jesus and hang out with sinners, upset religious people, tell stories that make people think, choose unpopular friends, be kind, loving, and merciful, and take naps on boats. How is that coming for you?
I think I've done a lot of those things. I have not gotten to nap on a boat yet, but everything else, I think I'm doing pretty well. The funny thing about it is with Christians can be rough. I don't know how you find this between Christian and secular audiences. I have a much harder time with a big Christian audience. Now, most Christians that I know are pretty loving, but there's a handful of them that are really angry. I got a really angry phone call like 6 o'clock this morning. I'm like, how do you wake up so angry? That's got to be a miserable way to live. Because if a secular person hates you, they just hate you. If a Christian person hates you, Jesus hates you too. That's really hard, right?
No, that's I do that. I get sometimes. It's funny, especially with the vaccination thing. I mean, Christians are so mad. Like, why am I doing a venue that needs vaccine cards, even though they don't know that I told the promoter I would not promote an event that requires a vaccine card, and they got angry as if like if that I'm gonna go to hell because I did a show at a venue that allows that requires. But it was L.A. County in Los Angeles
You're
County. I
following the
mean,
rule. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I follow the rule. It wasn't the rule. But you're right. Sometimes you get the angry Christians. But what do you call it? What do you do when people are like that? Well, you're in a good mood. You're doing your morning show, and someone boom, uh, kind of ruins your day. How do you adjust to that?
I can't say I'm the best at it because I'm a type A person. I'm very much an arguer. I will argue out of being mad or try, and that just makes people madder. And so what I'm trying to learn as I get older is to disarm people with love, to go, okay, let me hear your point of view. I had a teacher. His name is Dr. Dickinson. He's still alive. My best communications professor at Walla Walla University, where I went to school. And he said, my answer for most things when I'm not sure is could be. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It means I'm listening. It could be. So let me hear your point of view. But so many of us are so busy thinking about what we're going to say next, we never hear the other person talking. So let me hear what you got to say. And a lot of people just want to be heard. There was a guy that went off on me this morning off the air, was very upset. He's like, you only talk about war in white countries like Ukraine. How come you don't talk about what's going on in Africa? And he was yelling. And I said, you might have a valid point. It's what's in the headlines. So sometimes we're talking about praying for people, but you're right. War anywhere is war everywhere. It hurts all of us. So yeah, we should be praying about those things. And by the end of the call, this was mostly my co-host, not me. His name is Claude. By the end of the call, he's like, I shouldn't have come at you guys so hard. I'm really sorry. So reasonable people, well, you can have a conversation with. But if you come at me just full out angry, at some point, I'll be honest, there are times where like, hey, thank you for your call. Have a nice day. Click. Because if you're just going to yell and scream, we can't have a conversation. But I'm willing to listen. I want to hear your point of view. Because again, that's how I get more creative. And that's how I learn new things. The older I get, the dumber I get, especially as I have teenagers now.
Yeah. Oh, I know. They make us look dumb. I mean, we don't know anything. My kids are like, oh, what do you know, Dad? I'm like, hey, I raised you, didn't I? But anyway, you were born in California, sunny California, beaches, nice weather. Today was 83 degrees, by the way. You moved to Idaho for 12 years. Then from Idaho, you moved to. Why are you moving after the job, the better job? Or why would you go to D.C. and to Virginia when you were born in California?
Well, this sounds cliche, but I really feel like in the career that I have, I've gone where God has called me. Let me be honest with you, coming out of college, I wanted to be an actor. I was going to move back to Hollywood. God had other plans. I got into radio. There's a girl that I dated in high school. She dumped me on graduation day, and I was following her to Walla Walla. I gave up an acting scholarship to follow her, and I ended up in Christian radio. I had no intention. There's 3 markets you want to work in radio or in TV. They are New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago, the 3 biggest cities in America. That's where you make the most money. That's what I wanted to do. Just being really candid with you, right?
Right.
I'm in North Carolina, though, and I've realized there are things that are more important. I'm working for Billy Graham. I work at a great station. The station's in the forest at the Cove up in the mountains. It's just gorgeous. I don't know if you've been there, but it's beautiful. If you ever get a chance to go to the Cove in North Carolina, it's absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous.
I love it.
I had no interest in moving. So this general manager from DC keeps calling me. He's like, you need to come work in DC. I'm like, I don't need to come work in DC. Finally, he says, look, I will fly your family to DC. You can vacation here. We'll pay for everything. You just have to talk to me for 3 hours. And I'm hiring one of your best friends from California named Ty McFarland.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'll come for a free vacation. He's like, but you got to talk to me for 3 hours at the end of the vacation. I'm like, deal. So I came up and he sits me down in his office. He's like, what do you think? And they had taken me all over DC and showed me all the sites. And there's so much to see here. Great city to vacation in. And I said, look, I'm flattered. Anytime someone wants you, it's flattering. It's nice to be wanted. But why would I trade working for Billy Graham, who's still alive, the foremost evangelist of our time? I live on an acre in the mountains looking out over the forests, and I'm raising 2 kids. Why would I trade that for DC and crime and traffic and politics? And he said, that's a really good point, Jerry. And he opened up his desk and he pulled out an email. And it was from Hillary Clinton, who was the first lady at the time. And again, this isn't a political statement. It's just an email that she sent. She's like, we play the radio station. It's a Christian radio station in the White House on Sundays. And it brings so much peace to such a chaotic place. Thanks for what you do. And this man looked at me. His name was John. He said, Jerry, there's no other place in this country or maybe in the world where you can make this kind of difference with people for Jesus Christ. Will you join us? Well, I didn't have an answer for that, Nazareth. So I called my wife, which is what I normally do. I don't have an answer. My wife is from a town in Idaho of 2,800 people, Kimberly, Idaho, really small town. She's a small town girl. So I called her and I said, what do you think about moving to DC? They've offered the job. And she's like, this is God's call. Let's go. And I'm like, who are you? Because she's not a big city girl. But when God calls you someplace, he will pave the way for you. He'll make you comfortable with that. And I went back and I talked to some of my friends in North Carolina, one of the DJs who worked for Billy Graham. I asked him, I said, what do you think about this? I'm so comfortable here. And he said something I will never forget, Nazareth. He said to me, Jerry, God never called us to be comfortable. He called us to be obedient. You need to go.
Wow.
He never called us to be comfortable. He called us to be obedient. And that still blows my mind. Sometimes I think the whole American dream is about me being comfortable. Can I have more, a better car, a bigger house, and on and on and on and on. No. Am I in the middle of God's will? Because if I'm not, I may find myself getting thrown off a boat in the belly of a whale, right? I better be where God tells me to go. And so I think I can honestly say that I'm in DC because God called me here. 8 months after I got here, the man who recruited me, he was only 43. He got cancer and died in 3 weeks. The station went to pot. Everybody was fighting. And we went from in the black to $400,000 in the red. And I thought, good Lord, what have you done? Why have you brought me here to this place? You brought me on this boat to sink it. And then another year later, they hired my first boss from college in Walla Walla. And he said, Jerry, we're going to make this work together. Give me a year to change the culture. And if we can't change it together, I'll write you a letter of recommendation anywhere you want to go. Well, I'm here to tell you, Nazareth, that God is faithful. We're in a brand new 2-year-old building after 60 years. The old building leaked. It rained on my head in the office. We're in a brand new state-of-the-art facility with video and audio and brand new studios. And God gave us the money. We asked for $600,000 from listeners. They gave us $1 million for this new building. That's nothing but God. But it took time. It didn't happen overnight. We had to go through this time of trial. And I told my wife when this was all going and my boss had died, I said, I think I want to go to New York. I have a job offer there. We need to go to New York. And she said, no, we don't. She said, God called us to DC. God has not released us from that call. So put on your big boy panties, and I quote, and buck up. We're here for the long haul.
So when you left Idaho with Crystal, your wife, her family's there. That's her home. You had one child at the time or two in Idaho? One. Okay. How difficult was that for her to move to North Carolina?
I think it was tough. The maid of honor, or her best friend, said, if you ever move from Idaho, Jerry, I will kill you. You can marry Crystal, but if you move from Idaho, I'll kill you. She said that literally. And her parents weren't thrilled. They were always supportive, but they weren't thrilled about it. But again, when I moved to Idaho, I don't do anything without my wife on board, because I really believe one of the biggest ways God speaks to me is through my wife, Crystal. And so she had prayed a lot. And I was thinking about getting out of radio. My dad was a police officer. In fact, he was the first Black police officer in Cleveland, Ohio. And I was burned out, frankly, at Idaho. It was a small station. I was working 12, 14, 15 hours a day, 6 days a week. And so I decided to leave and join the police force. And I already had 2 job offers. I tested at the top of my class. And I went to this conference on a whim. Someone paid for me to go to this conference at the Billy Graham Association. While I was there, they offered me a job. And I called my wife and she said, no, but I'll pray about it. And the next day she said, this is God's call. Let's go. So that's how we ended up in North Carolina too. And so again, I think when God calls and makes it clear, and I'm pretty dense, so I ask God, make it very clear so I get it. When he calls, it's hard for other people to argue with that. What are you going to say to someone that says, God has called me? You say, no, he hasn't. I'm telling you, he told me first that he didn't call you. That's not going to happen. And so it's been pretty consistent. And I think the family has seen, my wife's family and my family too, that God has worked. And wherever we've gone, when we've been in the center of his will, he's blessed us. Now, it didn't always happen overnight, but eventually he's blessed us.
It's funny. Every answer you have has an encouragement in it. It's just amazing. Tell us how did you meet Crystal? I know it was a cruise ship. You said something.
That's a funny story too. I went through a very painful divorce, and I was one of the first people in my family to ever get divorced. It wasn't something that I planned. And it wasn't good. And I recall it was Christmas morning, Nazareth. I'm in Boise. I'm in my basement apartment. It's dark, and I'm crying out to God. I'm like, just God, why? I followed you. How could this happen to me? How could you do this to me? And if you really love me, I need to know that you love me. And I'm not joking. 7:00 on Christmas morning, someone knocks at my door, and it's my co-host who had 3 sisters. She and her 3 sisters showed up at my house to bring me Christmas. They brought presents and a tree and everything, and I'll never forget that. I walked out of divorce court on January 21st. 2.5 weeks later, my boss told me, I want you to go on this singles cruise. I've just gotten divorced, mind you. He's like, I want you to go on the singles cruise in Mexico. I'm like, I just got divorced. I want to go on a singles cruise. He's like, you're one of the only single members of the staff. You're going on the singles cruise. It left out of San Pedro, California, actually. It was the Mexican Riviera.
Okay.
He made me go. And finally I said, okay, if I have to suffer for Jesus in Mexico, I will. And my mom even went on this cruise because she still lives in Southern California. On this cruise, we're doing a seminar called Living Single and Loving It, Serving God While You Live Single. And while I'm in this Living Single seminar, I see this really cute girl sitting across the room. And so I'm kind of taking peeks at her, and she catches me looking at her. Well, if you've been on a cruise, they tell you where you're going to sit. You have assigned seating. Well, she was seated at my table. She says to this day, she thinks that I planned it. I didn't. It had nothing to do with me. My mom was also seated at this table. So that night I asked her, I'd always wanted to take a ballroom dancing class. I'm like, you want to take this class with me? She said, sure. So we danced that night, and we just spent the rest of the cruise together. So my mom has known my wife as long as I have. And we have pictures from the day that we met because we're on this cruise ship. They follow you around with the camera, right? And by the end of the cruise, we were basically dating. And she said, I said, can I call you when we get back to Idaho? She said, yeah. So we met on Valentine's Day. I proposed on Christmas Day. We got married on Memorial Day. 3 years later, we had a baby on Christmas Eve. 3 years after that, we had a baby on Thanksgiving. So we're the all holiday family. We left Easter for Jesus, but everything else we took.
That is so funny. What do you call it? So when you were in Walla Walla, right now you were just honored as the president of the alumni. Tell us about that award.
Yeah, I was just elected the president of the Alumni Association by somebody's major lapse of judgment. And my lapse of judgment, I realized all their meetings were like at 7 o'clock in the evening, Pacific time, which is 10 o'clock here. And again, I'm a morning show host, but I have now convinced them to start earlier. Their meetings now start at 5 Pacific, so it's not so late here. But it's just an honor. This school, I went to a private Christian school called Loma Linda Academy in Loma Linda, California. And then I went to Walla Walla, Washington. And throughout my life, Nazareth, people invested in me. My dad died when I was 15. And I still don't know to this day, there were people that picked up my bill there in Southern California and paid for me and my sister to go to private Christian school for the rest of my career there. And I still don't know who they are, but I am who I am today because these people invested in me. And the same thing in Walla Walla. I had professors help me get scholarships. I worked full time in Christian radio at the sister station to the one I work for now, KGTS. And I've just always had people invest in my life. I'm very, very blessed. So this is a tiny way that I can give back. Part of my job on the Alumni Association is we give scholarships to kids who want to go to school there. So I love this. It's a small way of giving back to my school. I'm actually flying out to Walla Walla in April for a homecoming week. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, that's awesome. God called you to DC, and God allowed you to build your own house. And there were some challenges. Tell us about that.
That was not the plan.
Everything you say is encouraging. So go ahead. Tell us about your home, the new home.
Yeah. So it's pandemic. It's 2020. And I'm doing what everyone apparently during pandemic was. I'm looking at houses online just for fun. I had no intention. But then I saw this house. It was in the country and it had a pool. And I'm like, Crystal, look at this, honey. We should move here. She's like, if we could get that house, I would move. We called the real estate agent. She's like, you're too late. These houses are selling in 3 days. There'll be like 10 bids. But do you want me to help you look for something? I'm like, yeah, not really. And we found another house. This was even nicer. And my wife is a good cook. It had this huge kitchen. And she's like, that's my house. I'm like, so you want to move? She's like, if we can get that house, I want to move. So we haven't sold our house. Our house isn't even on the market. And the real estate agent says, look, you can put in a contingent offer, but this is the height of the pandemic and people are moving like crazy. She's like, but you'll never get it. I'm like, well, let's just go ahead and put in an offer. And she's like, and you should probably have an escalation clause because people will get bid against you. We didn't. We gave asking price and a contingent offer, and they took it. And it was a really, really good deal. It was like, I was living in a townhome at the time. It was about the same price as the townhome. We put our house on the market. It sold in 3 days with 19 offers above asking price. So we're excited. I'm like, God gave us this new house. This is so cool. We're going to move in a month. So that was January of 2021 now, right? We get ready to move. It's the beginning of February. The sellers of the home say, you know what? We don't want to move anymore. We're not selling to you. Our real estate agent says, I've done this for 30 years, Jerry. I have buyers back out all the time. Sellers never back out. I'm not sure what's going on. So we prayed and we cried. And again, we've already sold our house. Our house is gone. We have no place to go. And we try to get them to change their mind. They won't change their mind. Again, I'm like, God, what are you doing here? This is crazy. So we start looking at other houses and we're bidding against other people because now we got to bid. And we get outbid multiple times. We just cannot find a place that we can afford. Every time we find one we like, we'll give asking price or even a few thousand above asking price. Someone will outbid us. Finally, our real estate agent says, would you want to go to new construction? I'm like, I know we can't afford it. She's like, I think you might be able to. So we go to this new construction place and they're like, yeah, if you sign on the dotted line here, this is your price. It's locked in. No one can bid against you. This is the price today. But every time we sell 3 houses, we raise the price $5,000. And we sell 3 houses about every day. Because again, this is the height of the housing thing. So we went ahead and we did it. And they said, well, at the end of the day, before you buy, at the end, we'll appraise the house. And then based on that is, how much money and so you put down your down payment right now. And so we did that. And my real estate agent asked up front, how often does it not appraise? Because if it doesn't appraise, you got to come up with more money. I'm like, oh, that never happened. This market is so hot. The house is just jumping. So fast forward to December of last year, 2021. It's been almost a whole year now. Our house is about done. They go to appraise it. Wouldn't you know, we get a brand new appraiser who's never really done this before. He takes houses that are 16 years old to compare against, and the house comes up $50,000 under what it should. Ooh. And so they're coming back to us going, you're going to have to come up with probably $30,000 of this in cash. Well, I don't have another $30,000 in cash. I've already given them this large down payment. I don't have any more to give them. And so my wife and I were praying and we're crying and we're talking to our real estate agent. She's a believer too. We're praying about this. She's like, I've never seen this in 30 years. I'm like, why are we I've never seen this people, right?
Yeah, you're kidding.
I told my wife, we may have to walk away from this because we can't come up with more money. We just don't have it. It comes down to the week before we're supposed to close on this house. And I kid you not, this is the grace of God, Nazareth. The builder comes back to us and says, well, we don't have to do this, but we want you to close on this house before the end of the year. We're going to give you $30,000. They gave us $30,000 in cash for us to buy our house. Who does that? That's nothing but the grace of God right there. And we had to wait a year, but in the year when we didn't have a house, you know what? We had two different friends that said, you can live with us. One of my friends from Idaho moved out here in the time where we had no place to go. And he bought this massive house. It's only him and his wife and said, you can have the whole top floor of our house. So we lived with friends with almost a year. They didn't charge us rent, which allowed us to save a little bit more money. God gave us new family in the time when we didn't have a home. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But again, God used it. And I'm so grateful for, I'm sitting in my office right now. This is actually a little studio. There's a little microphone down here and everything that you can't see. I have an office. I have a studio at my house, which I've never had before. That's nothing but the grace of God.
Now, when you had COVID or when they were closed, were you doing the show from your house?
No, I actually took the time off. I do several different shows. I do a show in Washington State. I do a show in Texas. But the show I do in DC, I was not doing. They're like, you just stay home and you rest up. But I felt bad. I didn't really feel sick. Like if it hadn't been COVID days, Nazareth, I would have been at work. I had a little bit of a scratchy throat. If I was going to die of anything, it would be of boredom or eating too much because my wife food would magically appear at the top of the stairs. I was living in the basement and I put the plates up there and they'd magically get clean. It was pretty amazing. It was fun for the first 48 hours. But after I watched everything on Netflix, it wasn't fun anymore. I wanted to see my family.
That's funny. Last time I was in DC, I came to see you. And it's during COVID, and I saw the new studio, praise God, and it's state of the art, and to the point that you were telling me that even the vents have separate for each room. So if someone has a disease or a COVID, it does not travel to other rooms.
We didn't even plan that, Nazareth. That was the grace of God. The contractor just built where every studio had its own air conditioning system. But God knew because we built it in 2019 and God knew what was coming in 2020. And so by the grace of God, there's like 33 people in our building and very few have been sick and only one has been sick very seriously.
Now, the reason I asked that is there a future for radio?
I think there's absolutely a future for radio. Radio is still actually the biggest media in America. More people listen to the radio than watch TV. A lot more. Oh. Now, I don't know that's always going to be delivered over the airwaves. That is still the number one way right now. But what we've seen even during pandemic, streaming of my station on devices like Alexa and Google and things like that, it's up 500%. So people started listening on other devices. The other thing that's changed, I was joking about St. Patrick's Day last year, and a lady called me from Ireland, and I was pretending to be a leprechaun. She's like, you're a horrible leprechaun. Your accent is horrible, but I love the show. She was listening in Ireland. We hear from 40, 50 countries every single week. Because of the internet, radio is actually growing in some places. And any place, as long as there is traffic, there will be radio because there will be people stuck in traffic. In DC, much like California, there's a lot of traffic. I think anytime, it's just like you. It's like you say, okay, you do comedy. Is comedy dying? Well, no, the delivery system has changed. We're on the internet right now doing a show, and lots of people are watching. So maybe you're doing some virtual things, or maybe some of those shows are people coming on the internet, or maybe some of it's still in person. I think there's going to be more ways of distribution, but I don't think radio is ever going to go away. Just like TV is not going to go away. You're just going to watch it on your phone.
Right. No, that's a good idea. What do you tell someone, a young person listening or watching, that's like, I would love to be a radio, love to be a radio personality? What advice do you give someone who wants to do that?
I would say be well read. And again, expose yourself to lots and lots of people. Talk to lots of people. Be a lover of life. The best thing you can be as any sort of broadcaster, radio, TV, comedian, whatever, is to be a student of life, to like to learn new things, to spend time in new places, because the more places we go, the more creative we can be. And then practice your craft. You've got to get in front of people, start a podcast, get a lot of practice interviewing people. You know, even when I'm on a plane, if I get a middle seat on a plane, I pretend like I'm an interviewer and I get to know everybody around me. I don't know strangers. You know, in the line at Walmart, I'm talking to people. I'm getting to know them because we have a lot in common. And I believe if you can find one thing that you have in common with someone, and all of us have at least one thing in common, you can start a conversation. And you'll learn some things, and you'll laugh, you'll smile, you'll make a new friend. Everybody I meet, I invite them to the studio. I'm much like my mother. She knows someone for 10 minutes, invites them to come stay at her house in California. And sometimes people do. You just never know.
That is funny. What makes you angry, Jerry?
What makes me angry? Racism makes me angry. People that will judge you before they know who you are, just by what you look like or what they think they know of you. That makes me angry. Any sort of injustice in the world makes me angry. People who believe lies make me angry. War makes me angry. Anyone being treated poorly, especially people who can't stand up for themselves, that makes me angry a lot of times. There's a song that says, break my heart for what breaks yours. And I really want that to be my mantra. Like, for God, the things that break your heart, the things that make you angry, help me to be angry about those things. I think there's some things as believers we don't get angry enough about. Like, we should be angry that there's so much homelessness. Angry enough to do something about it, to change it. Now, anger for anger's sake is not a good thing, but anger that motivates us to make the world a better place, even Jesus had that kind of anger.
I remember you invited me to do something for the homeless in DC. Remember, you guys fed
We did a
them.
block party, yeah.
You loved on them, and I do it. I wanted to ask you this. You work a lot with a lot of Christian artists, a lot of Christian musicians, and who's the jerk that you can't stand? Come on, there's nobody's watching right now. Just tell me. I work with the same people a lot.
I am happy to say that 98% of the artists I work with are fantastic people, and they're real in front of the microphone and behind the scenes, because I've got to meet a lot of these people, and they're people just like you and me. They have good days and bad days. I have met one or two people on their not so good days, but we're not going to name names here.
No, just give me their names. You don't have to mention names. Just give me their name. No, I know what you're saying exactly. It's so neat that you are you run into those people, and they are, a lot of them are, who like, what you see is what you get.
Let me give you an example. So I had a DJ friend that I hired in Boise named Travis Culver, and he got brain cancer. And the medical bills were just piling up because he was working for himself at this time. He'd left the radio station. And a friend of mine named Bill Scott called up for King and Country. You know, for King and Country, they're one of the biggest bands. Not just Christian music, they're one of the biggest bands in music right now. We called them up and said, we'd like you to do a benefit concert for free in Idaho, and all the proceeds go to this family. And they said, okay. And then they called me back and they said, we're going to be in Sacramento the day before. Can you pay to get the band flown up there and all the gear? And I said, well, how much? And they said $15,000. And again, they're doing everything else for free. And normally a band like For King and Country could get $75,000, $100,000 a night. Okay. So they asking for $15,000 is nothing. But I said, guys, can I come up with $15,000? Yes. The radio station will probably pay for that. But if we spend $15,000 on bringing you up, that's $15,000 less that we have for this family. And you know what they did? They said, no problem. We'll pay it. They paid us to come play a show. And then they donated all the sales of like their merchandise as well. We raised $65,000 for this family. You know, the most powerful part of this is he was there and he got to see it. How many people get to be honored before they die? We honored him on stage, and he preached to us. He said, don't miss out on what God wants to do for you. He's like, I'm probably not going to be on this earth much longer, but I want to see you again. Make sure you're there. He preached to us, and it was so powerful. And there were these Christian guys that they didn't even know him. One of the biggest bands in our industry. And they gave of themselves because they thought it was the right thing to do. That's what I love about Christian music, is these are people that give from the heart and give and give and give and give. And I see that over and over and over.
That's amazing. You always hear stories in the morning show. People call you and share the stories. Is there one or two stories that resonated with you that you feel is so encouraging?
You know, the stories happen every day. I'm trying to think of one that really stands out for me. This one didn't happen to me. This happened to a friend of mine in Boise. His name's Ty McFarland, one of my best friends.
I know.
He was doing a traffic report, And in the traffic report, there had been a really bad accident in Boise on the interstate, and someone was trapped in the car. And he paused at the end of the traffic report and he said, and look, if you've got a moment, would you just take a moment and pray for this person that's trapped in the car? So there's a mom who's there in Boise. She's washing dishes. She's listening to the radio. She pauses for just a second. She prays. She goes on with her day. She didn't think anything about it. About half an hour later, there's a knock at her door. It's the Idaho State Patrol. And they said, your son's been in a car accident. You need to come with us to go to the hospital. The person she had been praying for because of prompting of the DJ on the radio, my friend, was her son, but she didn't know it. That is the power there that gets me really, really pumped up. That's exciting to me. I was just sharing a Bible verse on the air, and this was a few years ago. And I think it was a senator, I can't remember his name now, a senator from Oklahoma called and said, can you give me that verse again? I want to use it on the floor of the Senate today. Wow. And that just gave me so much hope that there are believers. We're so down on politics, but there are believers that are working for this country that love Jesus first in both parties. You know, we did a concert a few years ago for the Congressional Prayer Caucus. There's a group of senators and representatives that get together every week just to pray from both parties and pray for each other. And so Matt Maher came and sang for this group and they prayed for each other. And that's not something you're ever going to hear in the news, but that gives me hope for this country. There are people here in Washington, D.C., a lot of them, who love Jesus. And people are shocked when I say one of the top radio stations in Washington, D.C. is a Christian radio station. You know why? So we don't talk about politics. We talk about how much you are loved. We talk about how much Jesus can change your life. And that message resonates with everyone, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever. And that's a message that we need to spread to the world. And when we get away from a Christian looks like this or a Christian looks like that, Jesus is attractive to everybody. When you say you are loved and you're accepted, who wouldn't want that? And I hear people all the time say, I love Jesus, but I don't necessarily like Christians, because Christians can be jerks sometimes, right?
Right,
but
right,
Jesus,
right. You're right.
Jesus is attractive. And when we can lift that message up, that's an attractive message. So my station steers as far away from politics as possible, because if I say Jesus only likes this group of people, now you're saying Jesus doesn't like me? No, Jesus would have never said that. And that's why we say you're welcome here. That's actually one of our taglines is you're welcome here. We're always encouraging everybody's welcome here. We actually have a spot on the air right now. It says, it doesn't matter if you're black or white or Asian, Republican or Democrat. Don't ask, don't tell, don't care. Jesus came for you. That's the spot that runs on the air every single day, because that's a message that's the core of who we are.
That is amazing. Now, how did young Jerry came to know Jesus as his savior?
Well, that's really an ongoing process. I gave my heart to Christ first when I was like 8. But honestly, I think I did it because all my friends were. My friends were all getting baptized. I'm like, oh, that's the thing to do. I'll go take Bible studies and get baptized. And I think I love Jesus. I didn't really know what it meant. My dad died of Alzheimer's when I was 15. And I came off the rails a little bit. I was a little bit of a rebel. Now, I was one of those behind-the-scenes rebels. I got good grades in school, but I did bad stuff at night, on weekends and stuff.
I'm like you, yes.
And I share with you, I followed this girl up to Walla Walla University, which is a Christian college. And that's what really did it for me. I wanted to be the big man on campus. I knew nobody. I knew 3 people on campus, and one wasn't talking to me, right? And at the end of my hall, I lived on a hall called 3rd North of Sittner Hall, and there was this group of really popular guys. And every night, right around 10 o'clock, they were laughing and cutting up. And I was like, if I could be in that group, I would be a big man on campus, right? And one night, they invited me to that group, Nazareth. And you know what it was?
What?
It was a men's prayer group in the dorm. And I didn't know that.
Wow.
And they're like, do you want to pray with us? I'm like, I'll come hang out. And I didn't pray for weeks. I just kind of listened. And then something happened in my life at that point. I worked when my mom was a single mom. I went to work at Loma University Medical Center as a teenager. And I was making like $13 an hour, which in the 90s, that was buku bucks for a teenager. I was making a lot of money. What I didn't realize is because my dad had passed and was older, I was getting a Social Security check as well. So I'm a freshman in college. And the Social Security Administration reaches out to me and says, we need a bunch of money back, like $5,000. I'm in college. I couldn't come up with $5, much less $5,000, right? And I told these friends in this prayer group, I said, guys, I may have to go home at the end of the quarter. I don't have this money. And they said, well, why don't you meet with the Social Security Administration? So I did. I went and I met with them. And they said, well, you can ask for the government to forgive it, but it's a process that takes months, sometimes years, and they almost never forgive it. But you can try if you want. So I filled out all the paperwork to appeal it. And these guys are like, hey, God's going to come through. Let's pray about it, Jerry. Let's pray about it. God's going to come through. And I kid you not, at this point, I'd never been to Washington, D.C. 2 days later, I get a call from the Social Security Administration in Walla Walla. And they're like, who do you know in Washington, D.C.? I'm like, I don't know anybody. They're like, we said, we've never seen anything move this fast. Your debt has been forgiven. You don't have to pay it back.
Wow.
And these guys said, see, We told you Jesus was going to come through. We told you he was going to come through. And I think it was at that moment, I'm 18 years old as a freshman, where I realized, okay, maybe God does really care about Jerry Woods, about my little tiny individual life. I'm a nobody on this campus, and yet he wants me here. And I'm like, okay, if you care about that much of my life and you want me at this school, then yeah, I'll give my life to you. And I'm not going to say it's been all smooth sailing, but that's where I made a conscious decision at 18 that like, hey, this Christianity thing is for real. God is for real, and I want to follow him.
I see God's hands upon you, Jerry. I remember one day I called you and said, I gotta go. My daughter just fell off the window of the second floor, but she's
Third floor,
okay.
yeah.
Third
Yeah.
floor. And she's okay. She was okay.
Yeah, we had guests staying at our house. We lived in a 3rd-story apartment, and they had opened the window and then shut it, but not locked it. And so she's supposed to be taking a nap, and somehow she gets the window open. She's leaning on the screen and fell 3 stories to the ground. And I'm in another room. I'm doing laundry or something, and I hear a baby crying because she's only like 2.5 at the time, maybe 3. But I don't think it's my child because it sounds so far away. And then about 5 minutes later, there's banging on my door, like someone trying to get in. And I open the door, and there's my neighbor, and my neighbor's holding my child. I'm thinking, how did he get my child? She's supposed to be napping in her room. And he says, I think she fell out of the window, Jerry. And she's just whimpering. She's not even screaming. She's whimpering, and she's got straw in her hair and stuff. So I call my wife. I'm like, I'm rushing her to the ER because I don't know if she's hurt or what's going on. And she's not really talking a bunch about it because she's little. She doesn't talk a lot anyhow. And they run all these tests to her, and they can't believe at Washington Adventist Hospital, they can't believe that she's not hurt. So they send her to Children's National, which is the big children's hospital in Washington, D.C., by ambulance. And my wife, they only let one person ride in the ambulance. My wife rides in the ambulance. I drive down there. I get to the hospital after the ambulance, and I hear them saying, paging Dr. So-and-so, trauma in room 1, and all these doctors go rushing to room 1. That's where my daughter's at. And they examine her head to toe. There's not a scratch on her. She fell 3 stories. She missed a cutoff pipe from a satellite dish by about a foot. She missed a barbecue by about another foot. So many things she could have hit. Somebody said, I think an angel caught her and dropped her like the last foot.
Oh, amen.
There was not a scratch on her. So this girl, and I asked myself why, because that's not always it ends. I've seen kids, they fall off a bike and they get seriously hurt. But for some reason, this child was not hurt. And again, that was totally the grace of God.
All right. You're a great encourager. I'm going to throw stuff quick at you. Encourage a single person right now.
A single person. When I wanted to be single, God said it was time for me not to be single. And 3 weeks after I got divorced, he gave me the love of my life. We'll celebrate 20 years together in May. Okay, so be open to what God wants to do at any given time. That doesn't say you need to be looking for someone. Just be the person God wants you to be. And if it's time, God will put someone in your life. Make yourself available to him. And I believe that with all my heart. He says, look, in all your ways, acknowledge him, and he'll direct your path. And I firmly believe that.
A widow.
A widow. God has plans for you. Just because you don't have your spouse with you right now does not mean that God does not have more of a plan for you. My mom has been widowed for 30 years now, more than 30 years. She's had the most active years of her life. I have to get her to slow down. Like I said, she was climbing a tree at 77, which she shouldn't have been. But she goes out and serves what she calls old people. She takes care of older people. She goes and she cooks meals. Thanksgiving and Christmas, her table is always full. You know why? Because she goes to the hospital at Loma Linda and invites people to come that don't have family with them to come have Christmas dinner, to come have Thanksgiving dinner at her house. When you serve other people, you will be fulfilled. It won't be the same as being married, but you'll be fulfilled in new ways. And you never know when, in the middle of serving, God may put someone else in your life.
Someone with chronic illness.
Chronic illness. Paul talked about how he had this thorn in his side, and he asked God to take it away 3 different times. And God said, no, but my grace is sufficient for you. I would not wish your pain on anyone. I haven't been there. I don't understand how much that could be. But I do know this. I know that God can use pain, that Jesus went through pain, and God calls that a refiner's fire, that he's going to cook things out of you. That's going to make you a different person. That's going to make you a more empathetic person. I've heard it said, we become better or we become bitter. I believe God can make you better, and he can use your pain to encourage others through you, because you've been there and you survive it. Then other people are, because Nazareth survived it, because you survived it, I can survive it too.
A marriage on the rocks.
A marriage on the rocks. It does take 2 to tango. Not everyone can save a marriage. But again, I think God does work miracles. And in the middle of all that, I was never someone who thought I would ever get divorced. And when I did, I'll be honest, I was a really judgmental person. I used to think, you should have tried harder. And I realized, no, there's so much pain in there. But in the middle of my divorce, it's the closest I've ever been to Jesus. I can't explain it. It's the most miserable I've been and the closest I've ever been to Jesus at the same time. If you can't cling close to your spouse right now because it just hurts too much, can I encourage you to cling to Jesus? He's better than any spouse in the world. He'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you. He loves you with all his heart. He's the person who never, ever fails. Pray for him to heal your marriage. But if he doesn't heal your marriage, pray for him to heal your heart.
How can people listen to you every morning? Because you're amazing and you can, just shine everybody's morning. You can make everybody's morning brighter. How can they watch it?
Well, if you're in the Washington, D.C. area, it's at 91.9 FM. If you're on the Eastern Shore, as we call it, it's at 88.3 FM. And if you're anywhere else in the country, you can listen online. You can say, Alexa or Google, listen to WGTS 91.9. You want to remember that, easy way to remember that. WGTS stands for Washington's Gateway to Service. If you tell your smart speaker WGTS, it'll play it. Or you can go online to WGTS919.com. I'm on the air from 5 to 10 every day, every weekday. And that is Eastern time.
Perfect. Jerry, thank you so much for staying up that late for us. And everything you said today, it was encouraging. Anytime, if you come to California and see your mom, you have to stop by. And
absolutely.
I would love to come back to DC whenever you need me.
All right.
I love you,
my
man.
friend.
Thank you
for
so
the
much.
opportunity.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. What an encouraging a podcast. Everything, every little story. I would love for you to tell your friends to watch this episode because it's really gonna encourage them, especially the last parts about single, widow, with a chronic illness or a marriage on the rocks. Really, really encouraging. Just coming from a man that's always upbeat, that's always have seen God work in his life and all that. And I would really encourage you to listen to WGTS 91.9. Love you guys. Thank you so much. In about an hour, California time, 8:30 p.m., we have our Live with Nash show. Tonight is show 411. So I would love to see you there. Laugh with us for an hour, and we'll see you. Please let your friends subscribe, and you can subscribe to this podcast, and we'll see you later. God bless you. Good night.